The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. This lesson introduces 8 characters, 2 of which are based on that sacred ceremonial knife we encountered in the previous lesson, number 105. The next few lessons will give further combinations of it. This knife, pronounced xin, was originally used for bloodletting as a religious purification ritual during the ancient Shang dynasty around 1600 BC. Used alone, xin also referred to one element in the 60-year cycle historically used for timekeeping in China and other countries in the Far East. When referring to a specific season, it indicated the autumn harvest, when the throats of oxen and sheep were slit and the animals bled to death for their purification. For royal family members, of course, religious purification merely involved the sacrifice of a few drops of their precious blood. Much later, in the Han dynasty, starting in 200 BC, bloodletting was already looked upon as an abhorrent act, with this ceremonial knife having long since been repurposed for tattooing or otherwise inflicting scars on criminals and slaves as punishment and as a means of identification. In the modern language, these cyclical characters, including xin, often appear in the names of historical events, Chinese astrology, and fortune-telling. An example of a historical event is the辛亥Revolution in the year辛亥, otherwise known as 1911, which led to the overthrow of the Qing dynasty. If you recall, the character hai, another cyclical sign, was introduced as the phonetic element in the character ke or ke in Lesson 51. In today's new characters, this knife, xin, is taken for its connotation of punishment, pain, and hardship. But it's not used alone. It's mostly used in combination with another character meaning bitter, painful, and miserable, hard, or laborious. Before introducing this character, let's review the character gu from Lesson 15, because it will become the phonetic in our new character. Now you can see that this new character adds the grass radical on top of gu to create third tone ku. It has the grass radical because it's one of the original characters for the bitter-tasting leaves of the tea tree before the fermentation and drying process. Its smell was likened to the putrid odor of spoiled soy sauce, possibly the reason it took gu, meaning ancient, as its phonetic. Anyway, here are copious examples of phrases with ku. First we have ku alone, meaning difficult, hard to bear as an adjective, or to cause suffering as a verb. 这事可苦了他了. This has been really painful for him. 我小的时候日子很苦，家里常常没东西吃. When I was a child, times were hard. There was often nothing to eat at home. A very useful phrase for English, why bother? Why go to all the trouble? Is 何苦? Literally, why the suffering? 你这是何苦呢? Why are you putting yourself through this? 您何苦为了这些小事烦恼？ Why do you worry yourself with such unimportant things? 要是能搭我的车，何苦坐火车呢？ Why take the train if you can ride there with me? 人若生来就是为了死，何苦走这一趟呢？ If we were born to die, why make the trip down here in the first place? 为了领那么一点薪水而去卖命，这是何苦呢？ Why do you work so tirelessly for such a meager salary? When one's lot in life is a difficult or miserable one, the expression 苦命 can be used. 这本小说的主角是一个苦命的女生。The main character in this novel is a girl living in abject poverty. 去年的火灾，太太跟儿女都死了，她真苦命。His wife and children died in the fire last year. Fate dealt him a cruel blow. Sometimes people will go so far as to intentionally injure themselves to win the confidence or sympathy of another person. This is called 苦肉计, literally, the ruse of inflicting physical harm on oneself. 他使出苦肉计来取得一个男人的心。She resorted to cruel tactics to win a man's heart. The combination of 辛 plus 苦 means to be laborious or to experience hardship. 今天你父母亲可够辛苦了。Your parents have had a rough day today. 他正为生活而辛苦工作着。He's working very hard for a living. 我如此辛苦的工作，到最后会得到什么？ What will I gain from slaving away at a job like this? Intentionally leading an austere, and some would say painfully difficult existence, is rendered as 苦行 in Mandarin. 我在山上常看见一个苦行者打坐。I often see an ascetic meditating on the mountain. 我就像个苦行者一样，过着苦行的生活。I live an austere life, much like an ascetic. 苦工、苦差 and 苦差事 all express the idea of drudgery, hard work, and a chore. 从事水电工是件苦差事。A plumber's job is hard work. 水泥工是一件吃力的苦工。Bricklayers have a back-breaking job. 跟你外出一起买东西向来是一种苦差事。Going out shopping with you has always been a chore. We've seen before that besides ingesting food and drink, 吃 can also mean to absorb, as in 吃水, to absorb water. 吃力 to put a strain on one's energy. 吃耳光 to receive a slap in the face. And 吃香 to take on a certain fragrance or appeal, becoming much sought after by others. Well, now we have 吃苦, the ability to endure or absorb hardship. 不肯吃苦的人成不了大事业。People unwilling to endure hardship cannot achieve great things. 有我在，你一生就不需要吃苦。As long as I'm here, you needn't suffer any hardship in life. 他是个信心十足，不怕吃苦的人。He's a confident person who's not afraid of lean times. Similar to hardship, the phrase for suffering is 苦头. So, 吃苦头 is another way to express this. 他想罚我去吃点苦头，是吗? He wants to punish me by making me suffer a bit. Is that it? 要不是有他爸爸在，他可要大吃苦头了. If her father hadn't been there, she would have had a rough time of it. To say distress, trouble, vex, or worry, whether noun, verb, or adjective, just pair 苦 with 恼 from lesson 29. 苦恼. 这封信使他苦恼. This letter distressed him. 没有人知道他的苦恼. No one knew his troubles. 他因天生口齿不清而十分苦恼. He suffered greatly from a natural lisp. 他为了这件事苦恼足足1个月之久. He had been fretting about this matter for a full month. 像你这样的堂堂男子这么苦恼，真令人吃惊. It's surprising that a dignified man such as yourself would be so upset. You'll recall 堂堂 from the phrase 堂堂正正 in lesson 78. Tang was originally a large temple or palace, here borrowed to describe a man of dignified and imposing presence, whose actions are open and above board. We learned in lesson 51 that ke was the pictogram of a pig being butchered, pronounced either first tone ke or fourth tone ke. Fourth tone ke lends itself to several expressions, all of which indicate sharpness, with connotations of cruelty, heartlessness, or harshness, such as 尖刻, sarcastic and cruel. Today we have 刻苦 with a more positive meaning of hardworking, or simple and frugal, literally cutting deep into the pain and suffering. Compare the English phrase painstaking care, purposely giving yourself pain in order to do something well. So it's no surprise that Chinese have a similar expression, 刻苦. 我父母亲的生活很刻苦的. My parents' life was very simple and frugal. 他很刻苦地念了几年德语，才赴德国出差. He studied German assiduously for years before making a business trip to Germany. 这位新来的员工有活力，能刻苦又敬业. The new employee is energetic, hardworking, and dedicated. To admonish someone, or persist in trying to persuade them, is rendered as 苦口婆心, literally, to persuade with the patience of a good-hearted grandmother. 苦 in this idiom is an adverb implying intensity, doing one's utmost, expending great effort to win someone over, similar to English painstaking that I mentioned before. 我再怎么苦口婆心，他就是不会听. No matter how hard I tried, he just wouldn't listen. 父母苦口婆心的叫哥好好念书，都是图人的. My parents' earnest efforts to persuade my brother to study hard were to no avail. Here are two examples of this adverbial use of 苦, meaning earnestly, extremely, or simply very. 人生苦短，何不开开心心过日子? Life is cruelly short. Why not enjoy it to the fullest? 今年因为苦旱，我们种的米全都死了. This year, the rice we planted all died due to severe drought. Now, before introducing today's second character based on the xin, knife component, we need first to understand its phonetic. This character has different interpretations as to its original sense, depicting what appears to be something tied to a tree on the left with a knife on the right. It's pronounced second tone la or fourth tone la. The simplest explanation is that it's the character shu from lesson 9, a bundle of firewood. This bundle is being cut open with the knife on the right. It seems to mean to cut or slice open. Another much deeper religious interpretation contends that it's a sacrificial animal bound to a tree, the tallness of which will carry the offering skyward to the gods when the animal is slaughtered with that knife on the right. This ritual is said to be performed when clearing pristine wilderness for cultivation. Second tone, la, is rarely used, but means to cut or slice with a knife. Here's one example. 我不小心把手拉破了. I accidentally cut myself with a knife. The modern meaning of fourth tone, la, favors the first and simplest explanation. By juxtaposing two diametrically opposite actions, binding something tightly together, shu, and then slashing it apart with a knife, dao, it now implies contradiction, rebellion, or perverseness. This character is often used for its sound, the gusting of the wind, for example, or describing bold, brash, or very self-confident movement and attitude. 他大剌剌地走了过来，跟大家握手. He strode over confidently and shook hands with everyone. Now that we know the phonetic la or la, we have three characters in which it's commonly found. Our first combination is with xin to create the character for hot and spicy. Pronounced fourth tone, la. The phonetic element would appear to be shu, but it's actually la minus the knife. Phonetic elements are often reduced when in composition, and hot and spicy la is an example. Notice, too, that the position of the elements are reversed in modern Chinese. 太辣的东西我吃不来. I can't eat anything too spicy. When talking about hot girls, but not guys, the phrase 火辣 can be used. 那花花公子常常和火辣的女生约会. That playboy often dates hot girls. When la is doubled, however, as in 火辣辣, it usually refers to a stinging sensation from fierce sunlight, intense embarrassment, or a sudden twinge of pain. 我火辣辣地挨了个巴掌. I got a stinging slap on the jaw. When xin and la are paired together, xin la, it more often refers to stinging criticism or sarcastic comments. 那种辛辣的话我说不出口. I can't bring myself to use such biting criticism. Since we know la, meaning hot and spicy, we might as well go ahead and add another character, this time the one for peppers. I've included this extra character because we've already seen its components before. Let's review the original character now. pronounced second tone, shu, or first tone, shu, meaning uncle, the younger brother of one's father. Today's new character adds the tree radical mo to create first tone jiao. If it seems a stretch that shu was chosen as the phonetic, the Cantonese pronunciation of this same character is jiu. Shu, jiu, jiao. U, yu, yao. The vowel sounds are somewhat similar. I've said many times before that the Southern Chinese dialects are nearer in pronunciation to the original sound of characters than Beijing Mandarin. So, now the correct term for chili peppers is 辣椒. 今天的辣椒超辣，嘴和舌头都麻了。 Today's chilies were extremely hot. My mouth and tongue are numb. 辣椒我吃得来，可是请不要加太多哦。I can eat chili peppers, but please don't overdo it. 这新品种的辣椒特别辣，要不要尝一尝？ This new variety of pepper is very hot. Do you want to try it? The character jiao originally referred to the Chinese Sichuan pepper plant, which is now called huajiao if you want to add it to your spice rack. Other varieties of peppers at the market, such as green bell peppers, are simply called qingjiao, with qing meaning green. 羊肉里加一点花椒会很香. Adding some Sichuan peppercorns to the lamb will impart a delicious flavor. 我想点这里超好吃的青椒牛肉丝. I'd like to order your super delicious beef with green peppers. Now we move on to another extra character, the parts of which we've already seen before. You might recall the character 更 in lesson 46, depicting a man turning suddenly around to glare defiantly at the person behind. It means defiance and anger. Here's a quick review. To express hatred and resentment, the upright heart radical was added to 更 and pronounced fourth tone 恨. To say you regret not being able to do something you truly wish you could do, the phrase 恨不得 was also in that lesson. To express defiantly heading in the opposite direction of everyone else, we learned 很 with the crossroads radical on the left. Over time, the meaning mellowed considerably to simply mean very, or to a great extent, an intensifier adverb in conversation. Now, in that same 更 family, we have another 很, third tone again, but this time with the canine or dog radical. It was meant to describe a vicious dogfight, and today it means cruel or vicious, as attacking dogs can be. In ancient Chinese, those two third-tone 很 characters were often used interchangeably to express extreme degree. Today, they've been differentiated, one meaning very much, and the other cruelty or harshness. 人爬得越高，跌得越狠. The higher one climbs, the harder one falls. 不要对我太狠，好不好？ Don't be so mean to me, okay? Or, don't be too strict and demanding of me, okay? 我知道这听起来有点狠，可是你听我说。I know this sounds a bit harsh, but hear me out. 狠心, literally a vicious heart, is the more complete adjective for cruel. 不少人跟那个狠心的地主有仇恨。Many people held grudges against the cruel landlord. 您对小林太狠心了，他可是对您很关心。You're so mean to 小林, but he cares about you very much. 我没有那么狠的心去打破他天真的幻想。I don't have the heart to dispel her innocent fantasy. To express something you cannot bring yourself to do, you can choose 狠不下心。我狠不下心跟太太讲事情的真相。I couldn't bring myself to tell my wife the truth. The main reason I added 狠 in this lesson is because it enters into an idiom that includes 辣。心狠，手辣 meaning ruthless. 没想到你对亲生骨肉会这么心狠手辣。I never imagined you could be so cruel to your own flesh and blood. 我看他不够心狠手辣，起不了制止作用。I don't think he's ruthless enough to prevent it. To translate English desperately or severely, 狠命 is a possibility. 警员追上了歹徒之后，就狠命地打他。The police officers caught up with the criminal and beat him severely. 狠命地打他 could also be rendered as 狠狠地打他 to express the idea of using great force. 他狠命地往上爬，爬到手无力，爬不动了。He climbed desperately until his fingers gave out and he could no longer move. Now we come to two new characters based on la or la as their phonetic element. In these two characters, the knife component is squeezed up into the right-hand corner, above the seashell radical. Its original sense was profit, which any merchant will tell you is the reason they're in business. And, apparently from that association with profit comes its connotation of dependability and trustworthiness, qualities anyone in business should understand. So our first new character with this phonetic is pronounced fourth tone, lai, meaning reliability and trustworthiness. When paired with xin, xin lai. It's also a common Chinese surname. 我哥哥是可以信赖的。My brother can be trusted. Or, he's very dependable. 她是我最敬重、最可信赖的女人。She's the woman I respect the most and find most trustworthy. Looking at this connotation of reliability from another angle, if a person relies too much on others, he or she tends to quickly wear out their welcome and hang around when they're not wanted. This is expressed by the phrase 赖着不走, to overstay one's welcome. 我们最怕大叔来家里，然后赖着不走。We dread when our uncle comes over that he'll stay too long. 像皮包骨的小猫，叫个不停，也赖着不走。The scrawny little kitten keeps meowing and refuses to leave. A person who doesn't engage in honest work, is totally unreliable, irresponsible, with no credibility, is called 无赖. This term is often translated into English as scoundrel, villain, or a shameless cheater. 他对太太跟儿女像个到底的无赖. He treats his wife and kids like a complete scoundrel. 我爸恨我男朋友，认为他是个无赖. My dad hates my boyfriend and thinks he's a fraud. 别跟那个无赖合作，你肯定会上当. Don't collaborate with that crook, or you'll definitely end up being swindled. In our next examples, the character 赖 alone takes on all the negative connotations of 无赖, even though 无 is completely missing, especially in the phrases 耍赖 or 耍赖皮. 相信我，我不会耍赖皮的。你当然会的。Trust me, I won't cheat. Of course you will. To blame others when you are clearly the one at fault is the usage of 赖 as a verb, a logical extension of the scoundrel 无赖, whose shamelessness deflects any criticism onto others. 你的过失不能赖别人. You cannot blame others for your own failings. 你想赖也没有用，我们都看见了。It's no use trying to blame someone else. We all saw what happened. As we've just seen, 赖 alone has negative connotations. By adding another negative and saying 不赖, we end up with a colloquial way to say not bad, meaning pretty good. Remember that in mathematics, 负负得正, or in English, two negatives equal a positive. 这家的牛肉面真不赖. The beef noodles here are really good. 这耳机真不赖. 你花多少买的? These headphones are really good. How much did you pay for them? 在那家高尚的餐厅里当个侍者倒也不赖. It'd be nice to work as a waiter in that fancy restaurant. Our last character takes 赖 as its phonetic element and simply inserts the heart radical on the left to create the character for laziness, idleness, listlessness, pronounced third tone, 懒. Literally, a heart or intention to rely on others. This negative sense probably also developed from the original scoundrel 无赖. You'll notice that this character originally paired the female radical with 赖, but was later changed to the heart radical instead. Was that the belated realization that women had no monopoly on idleness and inactivity? The dictionaries don't say, but both versions exist in the traditional character font that you see on the slide. 他懒懒地坐在巨石上看着羊吃草. He sat lazily on the border and watched the sheep grazing below. 我们在街上懒懒地走着，聊聊今天的事情. We ambled along the street and talked about the day's events. Naturally, a loafer, slouch, or slacker would be 懒人. 父亲不肯把女儿嫁给这样的懒人. The father refused to marry his daughter off to such a slacker. 你不可以像个懒人一样待在家里等机会出现. You can't just loaf around at home waiting for an opportunity to come up. By adding the character for worm or insect, 虫, we get another even stronger term for that same loafer, slouch, or slacker, 懒虫. 起来， 你这个懒虫，人家在等你。Get up, lazy bones, they're waiting for you. 你什么时候动手收拾这个屋子？真是懒虫。When are you going to clean up this room? You're so lazy. Rather than calling people unpleasant names, a much more useful way to incorporate 懒 into your speech is when expressing the English idea of not bothering to do something, not going to the trouble. 不要问我，我才懒得理你。Don't ask me, I'm not speaking to you. Literally, I can't be bothered to acknowledge your presence. 他累得不得了，连动都懒得动。He was too tired even to move. 我懒得听你对我讲这些大道理。I can't be bothered to listen to any of your sermons. 你想怎样就怎样，我懒得跟你吵了。Do whatever you want. I'm in no mood to argue with you. 你知道我是一个懒得回电子信件的人。You know I'm someone who hates replying to emails. In lesson 101, I introduced the idiom 心灰意冷, meaning to feel discouraged and hopeless. Well, that idiom is just as commonly found as 心灰意懒, with the same meaning. When a person's hopes cool down, they naturally become too lazy to act on them. 我从来不曾有过如此的心灰意懒。I have never been so discouraged. 对成为电影巨星，她早就心灰意懒了。She had long since become disenchanted with her goal of movie superstardom. 这几个月生意一直往下滑，真令人心灰意懒。It's depressing that business has been declining over the past few months. Here is our color chart with today's 8 characters. 辛苦辣 another 辣椒狠赖 and 懒 Here's our recap from today's lesson. 1. This lesson is intended to be the first of several lessons containing the sacred knife radical, 辛. The only problem is the two that I chose for their simplicity required several other characters in order to give examples of common phrases in modern Mandarin. 辛 required the addition of 苦 and 狠, while 辣, meaning spicy, needed 椒 to properly refer to chili peppers, and also needed to have its phonetic 辣 explained, which then naturally entailed two other characters, lai and lan, based on the same phonetic. 2. We've seen that the ceremonial knife, xin, was in ancient times a sign of the sacred, but centuries later evolved to become a symbol for punishment and the tattooing of criminals and slaves. In today's lesson, the xin component referred to pain and suffering, as found in 辛苦 and 心狠手辣. Now you will find a short quiz on double, triple character, and longer expressions. Answer using only the characters learned so far. Thank you for watching and listening.